And we're ready for you whenever. I can close this.
Good morning again. Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. My name is Yvonne Nelson, as Ms. Armstrong mentioned, and again, I just wanted to come out today. I need to say, I didn't see Dr. Crane this morning, and I know that Dr. Sanchez is not here. She's already, asked me to come. We've been planning this for almost a year now, and because things have been changing with Memphis and City Schools and Shelby County Schools and the merger and different things that have been going on with the well clinics, it keeps getting postponed. So even though I'm not able to do it the way I had originally intended, and that was to bring individuals who are young adults, adolescents, individuals who have discovered that they had lupus while they could have been in your care with me to speak to you, even though I couldn't do it that way. I wanted to come and at least share some of the things that they may have shared with you to the best of my ability. So with that said and done, I want to say thank you to one of your co-workers, who is Sydney Henderson, who works over at 88.5, the telecommunications station, who actually put me in touch with Dr. Crane, who introduced me to Dr. Sanchez, who started this ball to roll. And so I want to thank you all for being here this morning, because like Ms. Eunice was saying, what you do is extremely important. And the reason why I know it's important for me to be here is because these things are often overlooked. And just helping you to understand a little bit about the signs and the symptoms may go a long way in helping you to diagnose what's going on with someone. Now, I'm not a medical doctor, but for about a year, I was exposed to individuals with lupus. And lupus runs in my family. It's a chronic autoimmune disease that can affect any major organ or tissue in the body. It does not affect any two people exactly the same. Of course, if you got 2,000 or 20,000, of course you might find two with some similar symptoms, but it does not present normally in any two people the same way. It can hit a person at any age. It can hit a person of any color, any race, any demographic. I mean, it's everybody's disease. People want to say, oh, it's just for women, or it's just for black women. Misnomers, all misnomers. Most of the people that I dealt with were not African American. So the youngest person that I dealt with, the one that comes to mind is a 17-year-old, and she was a high school student. She was 17 when she reached out to us, but prior to her 17th birthday, she had had an episode. She had been diagnosed with SLE. And let me back up and tell you that there are several types of lupus. If you've ever seen someone that has gone, they just look like they've been burnt, like they've gone through a fire. And their skin is just discolored. It won't heal. They could have lupus, not necessarily. Patches in the hair where the skin is just not allowing the hair to grow. Lupus, the skin lupus, which is of course the dermatitis type lupus, it will cause your hair to come out. It will cause your skin to break out. It will cause the pigmentation to change. Michael Jackson had lupus, A lot of the things that he did was to cover up what was going on with him. And we don't know what all was going on with him, but his sister did reach out to the National Foundation on his behalf after his passing. There is the systemic lupus, the SLE, and that's the most life-threatening form. It can affect any major organ or tissue in the body. Nothing is safe, from the brain to the heart to the lungs to the kidneys. In different races, like in Hispanics, statistics has shown more in the heart, and African American women more in the kidneys, but it affects any major party. And then of course you have the skin lupus, and There is a neonatal type lupus, and in the materials that I bought, you can read all about this, because like I said, I'm not an expert. Most of what I learned through interacting with people and reading and hosting seminars where the doctors would come out and so on and so forth. But the neonatal, the baby is born with the symptoms and then they disappear. There's also a drug-induced lupus, same thing. The person is on some type of medication and the medication gives them these lupus type symptoms, but 6 months to a year, however long it takes to get the medication out of the system, the symptoms disappear. So if anybody had to have lupus, I would wish that it was one of those, but that's often not the case. Back to my 17-year-old, she had SLE, the systemic lupus erythematosus. It's the most life-threatening form of lupus, and it's often misdiagnosed, often overlooked for 4, 5, 6 years, because lupus presents itself like the flu or something else. You know, they're misdiagnosing you. Oh, you just have this, and they give you something, and the symptoms go away, and then you're feeling better, and you go back to living life, and then you get sick again. But guess what? You get sick with something else. So you go back, and they just misdiagnose you again. And this can go on for years. But all of this time, the underlying cause that's making these things occur is the lupus. And by people not understanding this, it gets misdiagnosed. And you'll say, well, that doesn't make sense, Yvonne. You know, medical doctors should be trained in this. Well, while I was doing this, I did go to Washington. And one of the things that really stuck in my head was that they get 1 day of training, 8 hours on lupus. Medical MDs, 1 day, 8 hours. So if you miss that day, you know, you're not getting it all by being there for 8 hours. But imagine if you're not there at all. So it's a very complicated disease. Again, it's autoimmune, it's systemic, it can affect any portion of the body. And it's just really hard to diagnose because it presents in so many different forms. So, okay, my 17-year-old, she wrote me this email, and she talked about, she goes to a small private school in East Memphis. She talks about how she felt robbed of her life. At 17, she lost all her hair, she lost weight, she had been hospitalized 3 or 4 times. This is October when she wrote me. She talks about how it made her feel, but the thing that I loved the most was that she wasn't beating up on herself. She wasn't feeling sorry for herself. She wanted to raise awareness to what was going on in her body so that other people would be more aware of what might be going on with them. She's just one of several that have presented who would be in the realm of people that you may know. And you know, they always say that we all know somebody that has lupus. Like I said, it runs in my family. After I did this, I found out my niece had it. I already knew. My mother had 3 brothers. The oldest brother had 1 daughter. I knew she had it. She lived from 17 to 70 with it. So, I mean, you can definitely live with it, but you have to have the proper treatment, the right diet. There are certain foods that can trigger different things, and you have to have a team of doctors who will work together. So it's so much. It's just, it was really, I don't know how to explain it to you. When I came into this, I knew there was a need, but I did not understand how great of a need it was. I mean, the way it affects people. I have another young mother, Memphis City Schools graduate. She's early 20s now. She has a young child. It's probably going on 3 in 2012. And she goes to Remington. She has both the SLE and the skin lupus. So it's internal and external. It has taken all of her hair out. And she wears a little bonnet, but her hair is growing back so fine. it looks like a baby's hair. It's just wavy and real thin, but she's lucky that her hair is growing back. It's not like chemo. But to go from looking like we look today to looking like she looks now, and then having, you know, a newborn to have to deal with. She has a, you know, family that's very supportive, which is wonderful. But, you know, I can't imagine it. And again, here we have someone who's not feeling sorry for themselves. They're not beating up on themselves. They're not saying, oh, dear God, why me? Why did this have to happen to me? She's dealing with life as it's presenting itself to her. But my thing is, if we had caught it earlier, could we have slowed it down? Could we have not reversed it, but at least slowed it down, given her the proper treatment so that it wouldn't be as advanced as it is now, because she's in and out of the hospital all of the time. I did write myself a few notes. The signs and symptoms, let's talk about those a little bit. Basically, you could have anything from extreme fatigue. People, like a child could come in and they just say, well, nurse so-and-so, I just couldn't get out of bed. And you know, mom, first thing she's gonna think is get your lazy self up and get ready for school. But if this is presenting over and over again, like couple, 3-4 times a quarter, where they can't get up, they can't get going, it's worth checking into. And I know the tests for lupus are really expensive. I think they're like $300+ So, you know, not every insurance is going to cover it. But if they have a lot of these symptoms going on, it might be worth it to, you know, set them up for these diagnoses. The fatigue, weight gain, weight loss for no apparent reason. The hair falling out. Maybe you might see the sores in the head, maybe you might not, because it could be going on internally. Water around the heart, pleurisy. The symptoms they're so varied. You could have temperature, low or high, extreme, you know, for no reason. You're not sick, but you're running a fever. Or you have the chills. Because it's autoimmune, there's just no way of knowing. Swelling in one or both legs at the same time, or the ankles. For no apparent reason again. Something's going on, you can't pinpoint it, but you know something's wrong. Something's not right. But you can't pinpoint it. I did one of these March 19th of last year, and I was just like right now, feeling fine. After I finished speaking, I was talking to a little guy holding this little 2-year-old, and he was telling me how he wanted to come back to Memphis and so on and so forth, and the next thing you know, I passed out. Pow! I just got dizzy, and down I went. Happened to me last Tuesday. My tooth came through the top of my mouth. I have a sore right here. You know, when Dr. Sanchez told me about this, I told her, I said, I'm really not feeling well, but I didn't want to miss coming here today, because it's so important that we understand that you can't just look at somebody with lupus and always tell that they're sick. Now, I hadn't been diagnosed with it. I know it runs in my family. I know I very well could have it, but I haven't been diagnosed with it. The only thing they keep saying is, oh, you're anemic, oh, you're anemic. Okay, so why am I anemic? Why am I anemic? I wasn't anemic when I had my son at 24, so why am I anemic now at 50? You know, why am I anemic? But they can't tell me. They just tell me, you're anemic. Put me on prenatals. I said, okay, if I get pregnant, we're gonna fight. But, you know, I mean, how it presents and the symptoms, you just, I mean, when you read the literature, you might see something in there that'll ding, a little light will go off, and you can call somebody back in. And basically what happens as they're misdiagnosed, what did the doctors do? They get that history, they review it, And then they finally put 1 and 1 together and come up with 2. But that could take 5 or 6 years. What we're trying to do is to raise awareness to what's going on, raise awareness to the symptoms, and then cut down on that 5 or 6 years, because we all know in 5 or 6 years the toll that a disease can take on the body can be irreversible in that amount of time. So what do? You kind of educate yourself to what's going on. And like I said, with children, I mean, I had a pediatrician from Le Bonheur to contact me. She had an 8-year-old patient with lupus, and the parents refused to talk to me. They did not give me any information. I sent the pediatrician some information, the magazine that I have for you today, Child's Play. It's an older issue, but it's like the commercial pill. If you haven't read it, it's still new. So I sent information. I never heard back from this family. Never heard back. So I don't know how that child is doing. I don't know if it's still, if he or she is still receiving treatment. Of course, because of HIPAA, I don't know anything about the child, and they refused to talk to me. I do know that the child was very sick, sick enough for a pediatrician to call seeking additional information. But you'll find out that the children, their bones will break easy because of what's going on with them. They can't run and play like the rest of the children in their age group would normally do, like a healthy child would normally do. So again, back to the symptoms, if they're fatigued or they have unusual swelling or weight gain or weight loss, the hair loss, or just any unexplained symptoms. If they have 2 or more, I think is what they say, kind of one antenna should go up, and the more of the symptoms that they have over a period of time, both antennas should go up, because it's definitely out there, and it's definitely a real and a very vicious disease. And like again, with the age, doesn't have to be a child, it doesn't have to be an adolescent, it can be an adult. I've had one talk I did at the TVA, I guess it was maybe November, October. Gentleman told me his mom was diagnosed at 60. How long she had been going on with it, of course he didn't know, and I didn't ask, because it's hard enough just coming forth and just saying what he had said. So I was in a more of a comforting role to him at that point. But, and again, she didn't reach out to me either, but you know, I provide the information, offer the support, give anything that I can give to give you more information on what you're dealing with, what to eat, what not to eat, you know, stay away from stress. They have now, as of last year, about March, come up with an international definition for a lupus flare. So everybody all over the world is on the same page when they describe what a lupus flare is.
I'm sorry, if anybody park in the middle of the parking lot in the back, nobody.
I did. It's
You
the
need to
one.
move it, they delivering.
Okay, no
something in
problem.
Okay. But the lupus flare, and again, it's, yes,
What kind of diet? What do they recommend with dietary?
yeah, they always say like, and I guess it's different for different people, but stay away from like wheat germs, alfalfa. I've heard certain things like, don't eat this. I know they eat meat, but I've heard don't eat meat. I've sent people literature, and see, the thing is that the research on lupus is old, and it needs to be updated, although they're updating it some. I can read over here and it'll tell me one thing, and then I can read over here and it'll tell me something else. So what I like to do is to tell people to consult with their physicians on that, so that I'm not giving them saying, hey, you really shouldn't be eating this, and the doctor comes back and says, oh no, it's perfectly okay. But a lot of doctors will tell you that, and they really don't know what they're talking about. So I also encourage people to do their own research. Do your own research, find out, you know, what'll work for you and what won't. Write down what you eat, and then keep track of how you feel. And that's the best way to know. But you will find some literature that says stay away from, and I have some people that'll just swear, stay away from the